So, hello everyone, and welcome to Inclusivity. This is a podcast created by volunteers of Asociata Explorator in Craiova, Romania, where we talk about inclusion and diversity. Today, we have a special episode dedicated to European Youth Week 2026. And this year, it takes place from April 24th till May 1st. European Youth Week promotes youth engagement, participation, active citizenship across Europe and beyond. In this episode, we will discuss inclusion in ESC program, how the program has evolved, what are the good inclusive practices in youth sector, and what we can improve in future in order for volunteers and future volunteers to learn more about ESC. So, hi, my name is Linda. I am from Latvia, and I'm a part of project Inclusivity Unlocked 2.
And my name is Giorgia. I'm from Italy, and I'm also part of the project Inclusivity Unlocked 3. And we couldn't have a better guest for this occasion than Andrei Popescu, who has over 25 years of experience working with the national agency in Romania. This institution is responsible for implementing EU programs, which has ErasmusPlus and European Solidarity Corps. Since 2018, Andrei was the head of the SSC in Romania, and between 2022 and 2023, he led the youth department. He is currently an active trainer and educator in the field of non-formal learning. Welcome, Andrei. We are so glad that you are here. How are you feeling today?
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for having me here. And well, thank you very much for such a really, really nice introduction. I could think about several better guests, but anyway, I thank you very much for being so kind, and I hope I can live up to the expectations.
On all this list that we mentioned of your accomplishments in career, we want to know, how did you start this experience? Was it with volunteering, or did you start working at NGO, like the beginnings of all your major career?
I started a long time ago in '97 working in NGOs. Yes. Very long time ago. I was involved in a student organization, and then when I finished my university, absolutely by chance, because the head of the student organization was working in what is now the national agency. She went for a PhD in Hungary, and she needed somebody to replace her for 1 year. So this is how I ended up in the national agency, working initially for Grundvik, which was for adult education, and there is where I discovered the fun and the coolness of non-formal learning, but for adults. And in 2007, the national agency received also the so-called Youth in Action program at that moment, that had what used to be called European Voluntary Service, that now becomes the European Solidarity Corps, the volunteering part. And this is how I end up into this. And I have to say that when I finished my university, I was dreaming to work in the civil society sector. Somehow it didn't happen, because I ended up in a public institution. But it was such a perfect match, because I realized that I can do so many other cool things in a public institution for the civic society from that position. And the fun part, it is. It's cool and nice to be involved in an organization, but it's even nicer to have some resources to actually make things work. And I think the national agency and the former Socrates program, and then a lifelong learning program, and Youth in Actions, and now European Solidarity Corps, I think they're offering a lot of resources. And when I'm talking about resources, I'm not just talking about money, but I'm talking about everything that comes with support, and with building learning opportunities, and actually making sure that the right people are meeting in the right place, creating the right things for the community and for themselves. In the national agency, my main job was I was the assistant of the coordinator then, and it was a lot of stuff to be done. Yes, it was some bureaucracy. It was also some papers to move around from one desk to another. It was '99 when that happened, so I have to say that the digital infrastructure that we're having right now. I still remember when you had to send things via faxes, and that was something sound like cool. And I still remember when, emails, there was not even such thing as a mailing, mail groups. Yeah, you had to send everything via email, but still, it was much better than sending on a written paper. So at that moment, there was a lot of administrative stuff to do, a lot of paperwork, but also organizing events. And I have to say that was the part that I really like the most, because what I really love about programs like ErasmusPlus and European Solidarity Corps is the fact that they have in place a wide support system, and they have all these trainings. And they have all these activities when working with, for example, the pool of trainers in Romania. You are not just saying, okay, here is the money, do whatever you want and make the best project with it. That is also an important part. But besides that, is like, okay, here you have some opportunities to come and have some trainings, or having some other kind, to build some communities in order that when you are engaged in a project, to have also the proper support to make sure that that project is happening in the best possible way. So yes, it was a bit of paperwork, but it was also a bit of organizing events, and that was my favorite part, I have to say. And also what I really liked was the fact that I still could be part of that NGO that I mentioned, and I also was running a debate club in the same time for students. So it was really cool to have everything, like put it was like a Swedish buffet, where you can take everything that you needed in one place, so to say.
Yeah, when did you sleep? It sounds like you were always on the move. Sorry, I'm really amazed how many things you managed to do. Wow.
Well, I have to say that at that time, for example, the workload also in the national agency, it was not as high as it is right now. Yeah, so there was some time to sleep as well. It creates a setting that brings a lot of energy, because sometimes when you're involved, I heard people, for example, trainers or somebody involved in TOTs, that, oh my God, this is such an energetic vampire activity. I'm going there and I have to pay attention to all these people, and it's feeling like they're dragging on my energy. Well, that could happen as well, but when you have the right setting and the right people, you leave there with more energy than you bring in. And I think it was more like this kind of setting when just because going there, I felt that when I was part, for example, of this student debate club, when I was going there, it was the perfect place to learn a lot of things, but also to gain a lot of energy, and then go back to the national agency and share my experience there, and the other way around. So it was a very interesting match, so to say.
Yeah, it was like energy cycle, like you gain, you give, and it's like energetic all the time. When you mentioned fax, I remember I was a child, but I loved faxes. I went to my mom's job and I was so amazed about this like sorcery and magic. How do these pages travel? It's such a cool moment about messaging and like sending information. Next topic is about inclusion. Since you have met so many people, done so many things, you probably have formed your own definition of inclusion, of including these people in events, in policies, in youth work. How can you define inclusion for you?
Well, yeah, of course. If you look in the dictionary, there is a certain there is a certain definition there, but I have to say that it's something. I may say that it over the time it became something personal, so to say, like a personal cause. And I think if I would have to choose a word that I could associate with inclusion, it may be belonging. It's one of those moments when you step into a community, be a local community or a learning community or a volunteering community, and you create some sort of an environment when you and the others, they don't feel like they're just guests. I'm not a guest there. I'm just somebody who is there naturally. So I belong into that into that place, and that, of course, once again, it has so many layers and so many forms, because it can mean like designing the right environment and the right process, or the right relationship where the differences can be accepted, and they become an opportunity rather than an obstacle, as somebody or some people might be seeing. And for example, I remember last year when I was facilitating an event in something that is called an inclusion festival, and there are different people from different areas, and they were discussing about what it means to have an inclusive city, from an educational perspective, from a cultural perspective, but also because, I mean, sometimes people, when are speaking about the city, they're thinking about, okay, you have to have that ramps, and you have to make sure that everything is done for the people, for the disabled people, which is a very important thing. But in the end, when you're discussing more in depth, it was always coming to the fact that inclusion is very much like a state of mind, and is very much like something that it has to do with a lot more than just mere infrastructure, be it that we're talking in education or in an urban area, because it's about, well, it's about precisely that thing that I mentioned a bit earlier about belonging, and how to actually actively think, what do I have to, I mean, it's not what do I have to do, but how do I react naturally so everybody would feel welcome. But it was very difficult because it was in my mind that it has to be difficult. And then when I stepped in and I just let things go, and I realized that I don't have to stop. I have to stop worrying about making mistakes, because I'm going to go make mistakes no matter what. But just to embrace those and try to turn them into a learning experience, everything went smooth. And just a short example, I remember that I went to discuss with the main organizer, and I was telling her something for like 15 seconds, and then her mother come and pat me on the back and say, Andrei, she cannot hear with that ear. Go and speak on the other side. And it was such a small thing, but sometimes, I mean, because I felt like she was not listening, and I was like, okay, what the heck am I mean, maybe she is busy, should I take personally? But it was, sometimes it's just this thing that you have to have the right information at the right time, and basically, accept the fact that when you are going to have many people with different perspective, with different needs, it's not about making mistake. It's making the best of what you can do and embrace that and work and go with the flow.
But then there's this thing that you can make these events, you can make these campaigns, these activities, but it is not in your power to really make them feel like they belong. It's their own will, their own choice. We can make as many activities as we want, but we cannot make them feel belong. It's like powerless feeling sometimes when you want to bring and be so warm and so welcoming, yet the other party is still maybe afraid, prejudiced, still reluctant towards it.
It's an organic process. Just go with the flow and accept the fact that, well, things could go wrong, but it's important to realize when things go wrong, and also to go there and be open-minded about it. And okay, it was not an intentional process to go wrong. It just really happened. And one more thing that I would like to add is the fact that inclusion is not only about. I don't want and I want to make this case very clear. It's not only about disabled people. Yeah, it's about all kind of people. It's about because I've seen that. I mean, for some, okay, let's say for the wider audience, somehow, sometimes it's this mental in the collective mentality. There is this idea that inclusion should be only about either people that are disabled, either they are very poor and stuff like that. No, inclusion, it's about every single one of us. And we can be excluded sometimes for one feature that we don't realize it. And inclusion, it's not only about creating silos to put people, like, for example, to create an activity only for some people that have a certain kind of, disadvantage. Because, I mean, you're just going to isolate them. It's important to have all these categories of people coming together, interacting, and learning one from the other.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, as you mentioned, it's each of us. Also, for us volunteers, we have to find some kind of belonging within each other, to have each other's backs, to be friends, because we live together, we go to volunteer together. This is also inclusion. It is in many, many layers. It's not only about volunteering work, it's about cohabiting the space, existing together in new environment too. Since we're talking about inclusion, I wanted to delve more into about national agency, your experience with that. How, like, do you have any positive examples about inclusion practices where they actually created more inclusivity for volunteers?
Well, I mean, when I was working at the national agency, you know how it is, because I mean, I was working in adult education. Then I was working for youth, and then I moved out of the national agency. Then I came back to European Solidarity Corps. But the thing is that, I mean, what I really like about what is happening there, and it's not only about the national agency, it's about the program itself, and it's the way the DNA of the program is built, both European Solidarity Corps and Erasmus Plus, because they are thought and for example, in volunteering programs, inclusion means quite a lot about having an adapted learning approach. Yes. And when you want to have an adaptive learning approach and discuss with the volunteering organization, you should have some sort of a support process, and you should have some meetings when you can meet with people and discuss about this and exchange some ideas about, okay, how do you deal with disadvantaged young people in your community, and how do you do it in the others? And this is one of the things that the national agency in Romania, I think, is doing very well, creating these kind of settings when people, be it volunteers, and that's also very important, like on arrival trainings and midterms evaluations, which is something that is embedded in European Solidarity Corps, is an extremely important inclusion process, because you have the chance to meet volunteers from other organizations, and also you have either the kickoff process at the beginning of the European or the on arrival training, but then also to exchange some impression, to see how other volunteers are handling their programs in other organizations and communities for the midterm evaluations. All these things are small little bits of a bigger puzzle, so to say. It's okay when you do this, to do it being mindful and careful on the need of the people that that are coming there. And I think the national agency is doing a very good job on this, both when it comes to working with the volunteering organization, as well with the volunteers themselves. And another important thing that has been developed lately was there is this learning community, which is called Strategic, which is basically for the volunteering organizations, when there are chances not to meet face to face once per year, as you have for example for the annual meetings, but also monthly to meet online, and based on certain topics to discuss again and share some good practices. You know how in the learning process is. I mean, for experiential learning, you experience a lot, you learn a lot, but in order to learn a lot, you have to reflect on what you're learning, and then to project, okay, why did I learn that, and why is that important for me? And I think this mentoring program, these youth pass processes, if you put them together, they create actually a small ecosystem, learning ecosystem, so to say, that is making your experience as a volunteer, and also the experience of the community where your organizations are having their projects much more meaningful. When we're talking about inclusion, and especially in European programs, we talk a lot about equal opportunities, and that's a very important factor. Yes, yeah. But I think it's more than equal opportunity, because you have to go beyond that, and to go the extra mile, and to go for, I mean, let's put it like this, something that is a support mechanism that is relevant and equitable for all, basically.
Yeah, equity.
Because equal means everything. I mean, it's math, everybody is equal, but it's more than be equal. Everybody should receive the kind of support that they need, and it could be very different from one person to another.
No, we want to talk about a little bit about the evolution of European Solidarity Corps, because we know that this year we're celebrating 30 years of volunteering in Europe and also the 10th anniversary of European Solidarity Corps. And you were involved when the European Solidarity Corps program will be established in Romania. So we want to ask you, can you share with us how the initial design of the program was formed and what were the main objects at that time?
Well, I mean, we have to say that when European Solidarity program came, it didn't came out of thin air. Before it was this program that I mentioned, European Voluntary Service. And once upon a time before, in the Youth in Action program, there was something that is called youth initiatives. And basically, if you are looking at what is happening like European Solidarity Corps, it's actually taking the experience of European Solidarity, European Voluntary Service and the youth initiatives and put them together to actually empower the young people to take matter in their own hands, so to say, and to do something good for the community, and to do also something good for themselves. So I mean, okay. First of all, it didn't come out of thin air. It had a basis to start from. But something that was kind of new, it was this idea to root the program in very strongly in this idea of solidarity as a European value. And so solidarity as a value can be seen in different ways. Yeah, but as a European value, it's a bit different. Because inclusion is one of the basic things that has to do inclusion and diversity. Yes, that has to do with the basis of solidarity. So, I mean, initially, the main goal was to create these meaningful opportunities for young people to contribute to the communities while developing themselves. And actually, that came with a little bit of a change compared to European voluntary service, because there the focus was more like on the person, on the volunteer. And it was very much like developing the personal and professional skills of the volunteer. Now, European Solidarity Corps, we have a we put a magnifying glance on the community. And what can you do in your organization on long run with the help of the volunteers for the community as well? Of course, that in this process, the volunteers are learning a lot. And I dare say that they're learning even more than before. Or project-based. Now it's a long-term process, and with the European Solidarity Corps, the organizations can have, because you mentioned that you have Inclusivity Unlocked 2 and 3, if I remember correctly, right? Your projects, yes. So I mean, that shows that you're coming from different waves, but with the same goal. That was not really possible before, because you had to have different projects every year. And also, I'd like to stress that, because now we're at this podcast, that inclusion was something that was very much deeply embedded in the program. And I would dare say that in most of the youth programs, also in ErasmusPlus Youth, for example, there is a very strong inclusion perspective there. But not only inclusion, because you also have the participation part, so to say. Yeah. And I strongly believe that solidarity and participation are somehow two sides of the same coin, that they have to balance each other, because you cannot have a very good solidarity whatever process, or how you want to call it, if people don't get engaged.
I want to ask also, in the past, did the international volunteer face more difficulties to adapt in Romania than now? Because now the European Solidarity Corps volunteer is open to volunteers from all over the world. Like in our project, we have volunteers from Jordan, from Turkey, from Azerbaijan. But how was it beginning? Was it difficult to create the first rules and policies to include people also from outside of Europe?
Well, I mean, one of the beauty of programs like this is the fact that, at least when it comes to Romania, you don't have to stress too much about creating the rules and regulation, because they come and they should be all the same I mean, to be frank, yes, they should be all the same for all the countries that are involved in this. Yes, the same rules and okay, let's put it like this: maybe the same principles, not always the same rules, because from each national level, then there's the national legislation and the local perspectives and the national culture and so on and so forth that could somehow adapt these rules. But the main principles are the same. So I think from this perspective, it was easy and it was very good because you had something that, okay, you didn't have to spend too much time thinking on how to build it. Yeah. But of course, besides that, there are a lot of rules and regulations and something that can be quite boring, like, I don't know, building some procedures and building some standards that you should follow, because when you have a standard, you have a certain quality that you should provide. Like when I'm talking about quality, I'm talking also about learning quality and so on and so forth. I think what was very difficult, especially at the beginning, was mainly in Romania to gain the trust of the international volunteers to come here, because there is this myth, and probably you still have it now, that Romania is not a trustworthy country. It's not a safe country. Which is, I mean, I dare say, nothing but a myth. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that everything is peachy and wonderful and rosy out there. However, it's, I mean, in terms of security and safety and opportunities to do things here, it's, well, it has quite pretty similar opportunities with other countries as well. And I still remember it was very interesting because we're having volunteers coming from Western countries like Netherlands, like France, like UK, because UK used to be at that time part of the program. And it's going to become again next year, by the way. I mean, wheels are turning around.
Hey.
Yeah. I mean, they finally just signed the agreement that UK is finally coming back to ErasmusPlus. I mean,
Yes. Also, we were talking about a little bit in these days how we get involved in this project and how we start knowing a little bit about European Solidarity Corps. And you think something is changed through this year to how the European Solidarity Corps can involve new volunteers?
Like, as you mentioned, 2018, it really kicked off the program, and it's really different times right now. Have you experienced how volunteers come into the project? Is it through like channels from like events, or is it social media, how they get to know the program, or is it like through people like ex-volunteers or people involved in NGOs talking, or is it going to universities? How does the program get the volunteers to come? Like through which channels? How was it before and how is it now?
I think the main challenge remained the same, because basically it's still the organizations that are in charge of the volunteering activities. And because there is a big diversity of organization, there is also a big diversity of communication channels there. So I think all the above that you mentioned are quite relevant, but probably from one organization, they can be more relevant than from some other. And I also think that I mean, in terms of communication, it is a little bit with ups and downs, yeah. Because I mean, looking now on how communication has been working out, clearly, social media gained a lot of traction. I'm not a big okay. I'm coming from a different generation, so maybe it's me. I don't think it's much more trustworthy. It's much. I mean, you can find a lot more information, but the quality of information that you can find on social media somehow it's not the same as once upon it used to be. And I think that, I mean, I can say there are two. I think, or at least this is how I feel, that there are two different opposite trends that are coming up. One, it is through this kind of fast communication channels like social media, because you have a lot of information, but you have to be able to process it there. And the other one is completely the other way around. It's actually word of the mouth, or like people that you know. And because this is something that creates much more trust when it's coming to communicating with people, generally speaking. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it is. We were speaking with Georgia. How did we even found out about European Solidarity Corp? And it is through word of the mouth.
And I think those videos and those ads and those they are important in terms that somehow they make you aware of it, and I think they're important for a first layer, and just that could create, they could create some sort of awareness, but the trust you are earning then later on, and the word of the mouth is a little bit more trustworthy.
So from my side, we talk about then and now a lot about volunteering, about ESC program, but how has ESC program impacted society in Romania? Has it become more inclusive, this whole society more inclusive about international volunteers coming and living here for a while?
One of the things that changed is that people are more aware on inclusion, right now. But just to be very clear, inclusion is not an endpoint. We don't follow inclusion. Inclusion is a long-term process. It's a continuous process. Okay, this is something that we keep struggling them, and we look for better tools to create more awareness and to have more targeted measures. And we have to be frank that the more you are looking for it, it's also coming with the awareness. When you are starting looking for something, it feels like, oh, this is such a much bigger problem. But sometimes it's a much bigger problem because you are not looking at it before. It didn't mean that it didn't exist before. So I think also the inclusion, there were a lot of things that were there. If we just take the example of mental health, previous generation, I'm coming from the X generation. To talk about mental health in the X generation is quite a big struggle. People cannot really, it's very difficult to be open about this, because that's the way we grew up, that's our mental wiring has been, and so on and so forth. Starting from this example, looking at inclusion, I think, there are also a lot of things, just like similarly in mental health, just because they came up on top, they feel like there are bigger problems than they were before, but sometimes it's just the fact that we're more aware of them. They probably were always there, but now we're becoming more aware of this. The programs are great, and I think they are doing a lot of things to uncover some of these things. However, still a lot of obstacles still exist there, especially for the disadvantaged young people or marginalized young people. I think it is one of the things that a program like European Solidarity Corps, but not, the whole society should be doing lately, is because now we're talking about inclusion, how to include more. But I think we really have to see on how we can reach those that are very hard to be reached, those that don't, it's very difficult to go there, and they are there. Not, they're on the or the unseen part, So, they are still there. They are still human beings with a lot of needs. And of course, European Solidarity Corps is one program. It has a very limited amount of resources, but still, you can at least pilot some things and pilot some programs in order how to reach better these people that probably are not that well seen. Okay. That being said, now coming back to your question, because you were asking about the changes that European Solidarity Corps brought to the Romanian society. Well, on one hand, I didn't forget about the question. On one hand, I think it brought a lot more, a different perspective on looking on how to build capacities among organizations. Because before it was, during the European Voluntary Service, it was very much project-based. Now, because of this quality label, you have to think on a long-term process. And it means that also the organizations have to really consider what will happen, not only in a few months' time or next year, but also in 2 years, in 3 years, and how you can use this in order to actually engage the community while engaging the volunteers. So from this perspective, I think it contributes to strengthening a little bit the civil society organizations. And in 2022, when it was the European Year of Youth, one of the things that came out there was this idea that we really need to look at things in a more systemic way, yeah, because and we realized that I mean, I was working in the national agency, and I was always working on, okay, how we can make the funding much more inclusive, much better used, to increase the impact per euro spent, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I knew that I was in a program about young people, but everything was about how we can increase the impact of the money. While the organizations were looking, okay, how we can increase the impact on the community. And we realized that actually, and I think European Solidarity Corps is a very good example in this perspective, because it created this kind of long-term thinking, how to look at youth in a more in a systemic way, and to put the young people in the middle, but realize that in order to have something like this, you need to have a vision. And that's why, for example, in European Solidarity Corps, we have the quality label, where you lay down there your vision, what you're going to do in the future. But of course, you have to have accessible funding. It's not enough to have a vision if you don't have the resources to it. And even more important, not to have a lot of money, but to have accessible money, because most of the European money, not in Romania, but everywhere in Europe, it's that they don't come to young people through programs like ErasmusPlus and European Solidarity Corps. You have programs like European Social Fund, but sometimes nobody really knows about those money because they're not easily accessible. So it's not coming back to the systemic way. It's not important just to have the young people put in the middle and to create a vision on how to work for the young people, but to also have resources that are accessible. And that's why ESC has this kind of unit cost and lump sum that are much more easy to work with. And then, of course, you have to have some structure, some organizations that should be willing to put the money and the time in order to do this, and to create services for the young people. And that's actually the thing about coming from project-based to long-term. It came also the fact that we don't need to look at European money for young people only in terms of projects that start and finish at a certain point, but actually in terms of a long-term service that should be put in place in there. And then we realized that for something like this, you need to have qualified youth workers. You need to have qualified staff that should be able to speak the language of the young people. And last but not least, to have also an infrastructure, because I know that also in your organization you have this youth hub, yes, and it's very important to have all these things together, yes. So the vision, the accessible funding, the structures that are willing to do it, the services that should be there relevant for the young people, the staff that should know how to provide these services, and also the place where this should be happening, the infrastructure. So I think from this perspective, European Solidarity Corps contributed because it gave this more insightful way of handling things and more systemic way of going there. And in this way, it created some sort of a support culture and a volunteering culture among young people. I'm not saying it was the only one. Yes, we have volunteering for a long time, and there are many other volunteering programs in Romania. But it was there working and supporting to develop a culture of volunteering, especially among young people. And that while that was happening, it was also this idea of supporting the local communities through concrete activities. And while doing that, why not? And with that, I'll stop. Developing skills, personal and professional, for the young people coming and being volunteers, but also for the young people in the community with whom the volunteers are working. And in this way, it's not only developing skills, but developing also confidence and developing the right attitudes towards embracing life in a good and positive way. And yeah, of course, last but not least, to create all these connections between Romania and and the rest of the Europe, because you were talking about volunteers who come and which is also very, very important.
Yeah, you just mentioned like local community meeting the volunteers. This mixture cocktail is building forward for the young people to know that, oh yeah, there are other cultures, other people. World is wide open, and I have this one glimpse opportunity to meet a person from this specific culture through these local events, through the volunteering. So I think this mixture also really like oils up the inclusion part of volunteers in Romania. you also, when we talked about inclusion and belonging, you mentioned mentors and mentorship. And for us volunteers, not only we have one mentor, but those who identify as from fewer opportunities, we also have enforced mentorship. And I wonder how this idea came about. Do you have any insight about this?
The idea of reinforced mentorship.
Yes.
Well, it came as a bottom-up approach once upon a time before when European voluntary service happened, because it was clear that for young people with coming from disadvantaged area, you should have a bit more different approach. You cannot have I mean, you really need, for example, if you have somebody, I mean, you can have a lot of profiles. Yes, you have somebody that can have a disability, or it can have, or somebody that has, I mean, many kind of issues. And especially when I'm working with this kind of young people, you need a special support. I mean, somebody who has a hearing disability, and you need to have some sign languages and so on and so forth. You cannot have the normal mentor, yes. Or if with somebody that, I mean, let's not go around the finger, but if there is somebody who has some mental health challenges, yes, and I don't know, because of the environment and so on and so forth, is always angry and is always responding in a way that probably is a little bit more like trying to protect from the others, but in a way that for the others might seem aggressive. You should have the right person that should know how to make the best out of it and take the potential of people, like of this kind of perspective, so to say. You really need to have a personalized approach, and that's why you need to have a mentor. They call it reinforced mentorship. I'm not going to comment about the name. Yeah, maybe it could have a much more creative and better name, but the important thing is, I mean, the spirit behind it, because sometimes you really need some people to have special skills to talk with other young people that have special skills as well, and they need to be matched.
Okay, thank you for this. I have my answers now.
I have a last question. What change do you hope to see in the youth sector? Do you have, I don't know, any ideas, wishes about change that should be implemented in working with youth?
Oh yes, I mean, that's probably the topic for an entirely different podcast, I guess. I mean, yes, but I think it's very important when we're talking about this kind of perspective and this kind of changes, not to have just one small little thing. Okay, it's important to be careful and mindful of every single volunteer that is coming in an activity. But it's also very important to have a mindful, especially when it's coming to the program, or the bigger picture, yes, and to have this systemic approach behind it. And because when you have a system put in place, maybe if something doesn't fit in one place, it could fit elsewhere. Yeah. If you have a volunteers that is coming to do a podcast, I'm just giving an example, in a volunteering program, and there is no such thing. Maybe because there are some other organization in the same community that are doing a podcast, you can work together with those organizations. So, I mean, one of the things that I would really like to see is how we can work better together and to get out of these silos that we can see. Again, we can talk about social media and so on and so forth, that is dividing and is creating these echo chambers where we are just together with the people that feel that they're having same ideas and the same attitude as we are. But I think this is very dangerous on the long run, because still, when we're talking about inclusion, it could be much more difficult to go out there and even have a debate, maybe even a fight. I mean, but a fight on the principles, yes, like not any other kind of fights. Just to be clear, yes, you can also argue. Okay, let's put it like this: you can argue with people, and you can argue fiercely in order to protect the principles. But that's important for us to do that, because in this way you can understand better what is the other person perspective as well. I would love to have this kind of changes going more like having a transformative change, transformative rather than a change perspective, and to listen more to each other. And I think it's very important, and that's why what you're doing, I think, is very important, to hear the stories of other people. And because when you hear the story, you understand better the perspective, and you understand better the values, and you can realize, okay, maybe I haven't thought about that. Maybe that person, I mean, I thought he's an idiot and he doesn't give a damn about it, but actually there is, sorry for him, but actually when I hear him or she speaking about this and that, I realize that I'm the idiot because I didn't really pay attention to the context and everything that he or she, they, them were saying. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, I really hope that also this idea of shifting the idea of youth work towards more real participation and belonging is something that could become reality. And also to have a system that is more human-centered, yeah, to be more looking at the needs of the young people, put them together and matching them with the community, and actually making the best out of it.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing this knowledge, because how else would we as volunteers learn about the insights from the other side of policies and organizing the whole program?
In the terms of inclusion, if I may add just one more thing, a few more things actually. In terms of inclusion, sure. Actually what that could come is actually to, I think it's important to avoid these risks of projectification. You know, we keep projecting our ideas on other people. And this is something that actually hinder inclusion. Of course, it's easy, and sometimes it's easier than going and asking and challenging ourselves and those people. But if we do this, actually inclusion would become sooner or later this kind of checkbox rather than a real process. Okay, I pretended to do that, and I did it because, well, it is there. You know, I met, I don't know how many people from different backgrounds, but they were still talking among each other and not really talking with other people that might have a different perspective. So in this way, we can decrease this gap between what is happening in real life and what we actually would be willing to have. And also, there would be many other things. And I think you know better that there are a lot of, sometimes we create also a lot of unrealistic expectations just because we're looking at each other and we think that, okay, this is how it should be done. And this is something that actually, interestingly enough, creates a lot of mental health issues, because instead of clearing the air, we just, we might have a different kind of perspective and getting blocked in our own perspective, then that could also lead to some burnout, because you think that you are going to save the world as a volunteer or do a better change or do a better thing for the community. But, well, what the heck? The others don't want to do it. Why is that? Maybe it's that because they have a different perspective that I'm not aware of. And that is kind of eating me up, especially if you're a dedicated person. So I think there are a lot of things happening out there. There are a lot of things happening in the society that we should be aware. And I think the fact that we have, again, mental health as a big issue and trying to understand how our emotion is actually leading us and making us take one decision and another, I think that also has an impact also on inclusion, on real real inclusion, so to say. It's important to bring different narrative together and not just to let them, okay, whatever it is, it is.
Yeah. That's how usually conversations should go, that on the table there are different opinions and then we dissect them. Not necessarily we need to agree with them or like stay silent about them, but we exchange opinions even if they don't match. And we're still friends when we stand up from this table. I've have friends that are like opposite side of my political views, but then we don't need to talk also about political views. We can talk about something else. But even if we talk about politics, for example, or policies or stereotypes about countries, it is through mutual respect. We don't want to hurt each other. We want to gain something because we know the world is diverse. I don't want to speak about the whole Gen Z, but I think my age people who are coming up in this youth work and NGOs, we have gained some kind of emotional intelligence where we want to respect and don't want to hurt each other. But that also comes with a lot of sensitivity, that we get hurt really fast if we're worried so much, we like overthink so much all the time. Like a lot of our energy just comes about analyzing how we behaved, what did we say, should we do that, what happened. Like we get so worried, but we are also very sensitive to the world to make it a better place.
Well, I don't envy you. But anyway, I would like just to thank you for the fact that sometimes you are doing that overthinking, and but you are doing again with mutual respect, as you have been saying. And I think it's very important. Because people keep talking about different generations, and that generation is like this, that generation is like this. I think we should. That's also a form of stereotyping. Yeah. Okay, there are different generations with different trends. However, we are human beings that if we take a moment just to understand each other, we can discover much more than we do when we just put a stamp and okay, that's it, that's the stereotype, and basta, end of the story.
There's like a stereotype that generations cannot be friends between each other. That's a lie. I have friends who are best friends with aunties, grandmas. They are not related, but they have this very unique friendship that I'm a little bit jealous of, but they still have it.
But that also comes with these echo chambers, because also the generations can be seen as echo chambers. I mean, if we just look at each other's strength and how we can work together and actually look at the potential, I think things could be much, much better and different.
So we talked about, to summarize the podcast, I will try to pull together everything that we've covered, is talked about how we understand inclusion, that it's with belonging. It is also about solidarity. Then we touched upon Andrei's experience with National Agency and European Solidarity Corps, the whole thing, how has it involved, how was it back in the day, how is it right now, per se, how has it changed, the change, we experienced the change. And yes, we touched upon many aspects of inclusion, how it explores, expands, and shows itself within volunteering and working with youth. To our listeners, thank you for joining us in this special episode of Inclusivity Unlocked 2 and 3. Found out more about our podcast and activities in social media under the name Voluntariat pentru Comunitate, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I think I covered everything. Did I forget something? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.